Welcome to Poetry with Shing, where we uncover the beauty behind poetry. In today's episode, we'll be looking at Parting by Charlotte Bronte and From the North Ship by Philip Larkin. So the idea is that the poem title for the Philip Larkin poem B that I got was From the North Ship, but the title that I saw online is Love We Must Part Now. So that's why I wrote the alternative title on the top of the Philip Larkin poem. And our question for today is, both poems take parting as a theme. How do the poets differ in their approach towards the subject matter? So our answer should, as usual, take into consideration the use of poetic form and language. Today's episode would be in the form of, once again, similar to previous episodes, I'll be showing you how I might possibly write an essay that would answer this question, all the while discussing the idea of parting in both poems. So I'll not be reading out both poems because they can be seen on the screen over here. And without further ado, let's begin. Charlotte Bronte's Parting and The North Ship by Philip Larkin both explore the theme of parting. While Bronte's Parting takes on a longing tone that contains a mix of both resignation and hopefulness, Larkin's North Ship contains the tone of liberation and self-empowerment. Yet, despite the seemingly celebratory attitude of the speaker in North Ship, there is still a tinge of bittersweet within the poem. So let's write down all our keywords here. So there is an idea of longing in poem A. There's a bit of resignation and hopefulness. Whereas North Ship has the idea of liberation, self-empowerment, and an idea that it is of something like quite bittersweet. So poem A's Parting, poem A, which is Parting, is structured in the form of quatrains, with the exception of the fourth stanza, which consists of 8 lines. So in this case, the poem that I got does not have the 8 lines fourth stanza. So, well, in the original poem that was printed that I have with me right now, it actually has 8 lines on the fourth stanza. So these two stanzas are actually combined as one. Alright, so in the first 3 stanzas, the regularity of the quatrain points to parting as being a common and universal experience. So quatrains are common and universal. And it appears regularly in one's life. However, in the middle of the poem, the 8-line stanza acts as a volta. A volta means a poetic shift, and a climax to the poem by breaking the pattern of a regular quatrain-filled poem. This break in pattern suggests the jarring disturbance parting has on one's life, and in this case the speaker's life, such that despite acknowledging the inevitability of parting, the speaker still struggles to come to terms with it during the process of parting. The intention of giving the fourth stanza twice the number of lines than the other stanzas also suggests the speaker's reluctance to break away from her loved one, as there is no stanza break between the 8 lines in the middle stanza that could have formed 2 quatrains. On the other hand, North Ship by Larkin, which is poem B, presents the subversion of the conventional sonnet structure by appearing in the form of 2 stanzas, 9 lines and 5 lines long respectively. So this subversion of a regular sonnet structure. A conventional sonnet serves the purpose of being a declaration of love, and appears in the form of 2 stanzas, 8 lines and 6 lines long respectively. Hence, by changing the number of lines, the poem has to differ from that of an actual sonnet, hints at the parting of love and the breaking apart of a romance. Yet, the poem contains 14 lines, exactly the same as that of a regular sonnet, pointing to the bittersweet tone of lost love now that the actual speaker and his loved one have chosen to part. So the subversion of a conventional sonnet structure. So it's like an idea of a breaking apart of romance. While parting is inevitable, both poems employ the use of vivid imagery to portray contrasting attitudes towards coping with the absence of a loved one. Poem A introduces the idea of seeking solace in memory of the departed loved one, as seen from the imagery of sitting by the fire, Persians alone, then shall heart with warm heart greeting. So let's find where that is. Oh, sorry, it's meeting over here. So there's this idea about um seeking solace in the memory. So the feeling of isolation and loneliness comes through the word choice of alone by painting a vivid image of the solitude the speaker experiences without the physical presence of the loved one. So there's an idea of solitude. Fortunately, the speaker relies on her memories of the loved one to keep her company, as suggested through heart with warm heart meeting, as the speaker meets with her loved one in her feeling and loving heart to relive the times they had spent together. As such, the poet proposes the idea of memory as a tool for comfort and reassurance of the constant emotional presence of a loved one, even though he or she may have already departed. So there's this idea of comfort and reassurance. And this solitude may not actually be, may only be a physical feeling of loneliness, but in reality, the departed loved one will always be emotionally present with the speaker. Interestingly, though, the possible falsity of memory that takes the form of a romanticized ideal of the missing loved one is capable of deceiving the speaker who is coping with the loss. This idea is apparent in the poem as the poet writes of how when we've parted wide and far, we will think of one another as even better than we are. So where's this idea? So this idea here is pretty important. It's talking about how essentially what I mentioned just now, which is that memory may be false. So the falsity of memory takes the form of a romanticized ideal of the loved one. So this leads to an idea about how memory could deceive the speaker who is coping with loss. The fact that parting bonds better impressions of the loved one in the speaker's mind indicates how memory is an avenue for idealized versions of events and even impressions of people, thus challenging the perspective of how seeking respite in memory is an effective method to coping with absence and loss that comes with parting. So this idea about seeking respite in memory, is it really an effective method for you? Alright, so on the other hand, Larkin's North ship conveys decisiveness in the decision to part. So the decision to part is very decisive. This can be seen through the imagery of two tall ships wind-masted, wet with light break from an estuary with their courses set, and waving part and waving drop from sight. So this part over here. So the ships are described as windmasted, signaling how the seeker and his loved one had gone through many obstacles in the past and projects the image into the future to convey how these memories of defying the odds together will be a part of their separate journeys as the ships are about to depart from their weathered masts. So this is very weathered. So they underwent trials and tribulations together. So they got through hard times together. Yet with these memories, the couple does not cling on to them longingly, unlike in poem A, Parting, but carries them like a milestone in life to firmly venture beyond the charted waters and start a new life without each other, as shown through the crisp sounding break. This idea. So it's more of a parting that um does not implicate one each other in the future. So they venture beyond charted waters and start a new life without each other. Deep down, however, having played a big part in one another's life in the past, they remain slightly unwilling to part, conveyed through their waving in the last line of the poem over here. So, as they bid farewell to each other until the other is lost along the horizon. Hence, Larkin's take in coping with parting is to take the valuable memories made and move on in life to the next destination. Despite that, he also acknowledges the element of longing and reluctance in parting, but remains on the forward-looking attitude that one should adopt. Additionally, through vivid imagery, the notion of freedom playing a pivotal role in parting is raised in both poems. In poem A, Parting, the speaker yearns for freedom for her to be together with her loved one. We can burst the bonds which chains us, which cold human hands have wrought, and when none there shall restrain us, we can meet again in thought. So this idea over here brings out the kinesthetic imagery of physical restraints that are unfeeling and indifferent. So there's an idea of unfeeling and indifferent physical restraints. So these restraints are unfeeling and indifferent to the speaker's desires of reuniting with her loved one. So in this stanza, the poet compares chains to hands, suggesting a subversion of expectations, as hands are usually warm, but are now similar to the lifeless cold metal chains. So you can see the hands are cold, and also there's an idea of hands being chains. So there's a subversion of expectations. The poet maintains that freedom is required for people to be together. Besides that, there is a striking point the poet maintains. Let me write this down first. This is quite important. Freedom is required for people to be together. There is also a striking point that the poet is proposing in this stanza, which is that memory of her loved one is more comforting than a physical person being there. The speaker is determined to break free from the physical restraints that prevents her from being together with her loved one. Yet when she is free, she imagines herself to reunite with the loved one in her thoughts. Hence, the idea of memory being a romanticized and possibly easier to accept image of her loved one is more important to the speaker than the true state of her loved one, raising the question of the dysfunctional nature of the speaker's longing. Meanwhile, in Larkin's North Ship, on the other side, freedom is required to be able to part. This is suggested through imagery of nature, where upon parting, the speaker exclaims that never has the sun more boldly paced the sky, never were the hearts more eager to be free, to kick down walls, lash forests. So this idea over here that I just read out. The exciting anticipation of impending liberation is echoed within these lines as the speaker suggests the bizarre possibility of having the freedom to incite world destruction, hinted through kicking down walls and lashing forests. The speaker implies that with the freedom to part, the spiritual and emotional being of the speaker and his loved one are faced with limitless possibilities, contrasting to the idea of the burdening responsibility of being together. Hence, the poet in poem A, which is Parting, suggests the need for freedom to unite, while Larkin suggests the need for freedom to part. The pivotal role freedom plays in relationships of mankind thus reveals itself within these 12 poems. Regardless of the attitudes of the speakers and poets of the two poems, one idea remains similar, that parting is difficult to verbalize and communicate. In poem A, this poem Parting is written similar to a monologue. So if she is merely talking to herself about parting and engaging in self-deception and reassurance of the impending parting, the fact that the speaker only converses with herself indicates how it is hard to share with others the painful feelings of parting. Similarly, Larkin's titling of the poem, which is the North Ship actual poem, conveys how it is difficult to verbalize parting. The title contains Roman numerals, which are challenging to read out. If one reads it by its individual alphabets over here, the true essence of the title is unable to be encapsulated. Hence, it is challenging to find a compromise to decide on the reading of the title, possibly linking to the idea of the difficulty of verbalizing parting. In conclusion, the binary oppositions of parting and being together are explored in the two poems. While parting is inevitable in life and thus is considered a universal experience, the individual experience of pain and loss that comes with parting is unique to every individual, which makes parting so difficult to verbalize. Ultimately, the call for freedom to decide whether to stay together or to part resonates in this pair of quotes, and that is quite possibly the fundamental to contributing to a fulfilling life experience. Alright, that marks the end of our poetry analysis and poetry comparison for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you and goodbye.